Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to The Void. No, you haven't missed anything from last week. This is, in fact, a different episode, and I think I want to do something new and interesting, something that I've never seen anybody really do before. So I've been building dioramas in the background occasionally. The last couple of episodes on the channel have been dioramas, and it's been a lot of fun. And I think I want to continue that concept, but more. What do I mean by that? Well, so one of the most fun experiences I've had in Planet Zoo thus far is to just pull out a randomizer wheel, just some picker wheel, put in every single animal that exists in the game, and just spin the wheel to see what I end up with. And it's netted me an entire zoo, and I've had a really wonderful experience with it. So today I thought, you know what? I've been having fun with dioramas, I've been having fun with randomizers. What if we did an entire zoo like this? So we're gonna give it a shot. I don't know how well this is gonna go. I don't know how long it's gonna continue. Maybe we will do the one animal and then nothing else. But for today, I figured that I would go ahead and get you introduced to this plot of land. So we have this nice big square, and of course there are a few things that we're going to need to do with this. So we don't have a guest spawner, we don't have any kind of staff, it's literally just a chunk of ground, and it doesn't even need to be a cube, it could be a cylinder, it could be a hemisphere. So we have lots of options in terms of what we want to do with this space. We could do something like this, and it's cool. I don't really have any problems with this. The only thing is that I do like the cube so that way I can see where my grid is going to lie, and then we can obey the grid lines appropriately. So let's go ahead and start, I think, maybe getting down some of our buildings so that way we have sort of this central hub. And then after that, I think we should go ahead and pull up the picker wheel and find an animal for ourselves. So let's start with our facilities. We are going to be doing this in sandbox mode. I've done this before, this sort of randomizer idea in franchise. It was a lot of fun, but unfortunately, franchise doesn't allow you to do these dioramas. You have to do them in sandbox. So we're a little bit limited. We could change our settings if we wanted to. I'm not particularly interested in doing that at this minute. So for now, let's go ahead and get out our animal trade center so that way we can actually bring in some creatures. And then, because we don't have a budget, I'm kind of okay doing things like keeper hut and quarantine larges, you know, things like that. For now, we're going to go ahead and keep some of these small. Like, I've rarely ever needed a large quarantine outside of the occasional incident in, what's it called? Campaign mode, basically. There was one incident where I was caring for an entire flock of flamingos, and every single one of them decided that, you know what would be great is if I got sick right now. And I mean, like, there had to be like 30 or 40 flamingos in this enclosure. There were so many of them. It was just too much. And so that was the one time where I really could have used a larger quarantine that held more than 8 animals. But other than that, I've rarely needed it for any sort of occasion. So we're going to go ahead and limit ourselves to that. And then I normally do this kind of plaza setup. I haven't decided yet. And then on top of that, because of the fact that we're in the void, we don't need to obey much of anything. So we'll see. I'm not sure. I'm going to go ahead and build something up real quick and then I'll bring you back. Okay, so we are back. I know that this looks like just a horrible mess right now. And it is. It absolutely is. But let me show you a little bit about what we're doing here. So if I go into Explorer mode, you get the vibe a little bit better. So my goal is to make this feel a little bit more like I'm using the stone because we're going to bury this into the ground. That's the goal. There's really no reason for it to be visible whatsoever, so I'm not really thinking about this in terms of how is this going to look to like outsiders and guests and things. I don't care. But what I do have is this layout. So we've got our staff room over here, which is actually a really nice little staff room. I don't know, I've had a lot of jobs where like we didn't have anything this nice. If we go into here, we've got our keeper's hut. And then we've got this little jog right here. So over here is, I think, the quarantine. This is going to be the trade center. And then back here is going to be our veterinarian. So all of this is going to be submerged in just a little bit. I'm going to have to delete all of these paths, but I got my proof of concept down. So we have this little squared out walkway, and this is going to be our staff access only. Where this is going to end up going, which I can't access because they've never fixed this glitch, is that there will be a platform up here which I removed so that way we could look in and get a better idea of what these shapes are. And then I'll do something with this little tower right here, maybe turn it into like a clock tower or something. So this is actually, up here is going to be our ground floor. So all of this, I'm now going to work on sinking in. There we are. So now that entire unit is sunk into the ground. Odds on, we probably won't be able to use explore mode on this. Well, maybe. I don't know. See, yeah, right there, it wants to dip into the ground. It just doesn't like me. Someday, this glitch will be patched out, and I will finally be happy. But not today. So we're going to do a little bit more decorating here on the top. Let's go ahead and turn this into something worth noticing. And we'll definitely need to incorporate some spawners into this. So what I'm thinking is, while it would be super cool to use some of this for like exhibits or something like that, I don't think that that's going to be possible. Instead, maybe we'll do some greenery. Let's grab our wall, and I want to grab this curved one down here, if it will let me. There we are. Move that to 2 meter. Oh, because I've moved the grid size to 2 meter. That's not what I wanted. I want the height. Just as such, and then we'll get the European stone. And let's get some flats. Like this. This is a cute little arch. And then, you know what? Let's make this like something glass. And then I see no reason for this to stay white. Maybe we could do like a kind of like a rusted copper. It's a little bit more on the blue side, I think. Is this gonna end up just being teal? Oh, yeah, if we can't find something we do end up liking. Actually, that kind of, oh, there's a DLC with this. Conservation pack. It's like a conservation pack green. And I'm kind of okay with that. So we might do this, we might turn it black. Because black always looks classy. So let's see. You know, I think it actually loses some of the personality with the black. Yeah. And then let's deal with our tower. Let's get this decorated out, and then after that we might look into changing the colors on our rustic stone, just to make it a little bit more earth-toned, a little bit less gray. Or do we want to do that first? Decisions. Let's figure out what our roof is doing, I think. Since we've already got some green, let's go ahead and grab some copper. It's kind of perfect. And then let's get out... You know what? Let's get out some more European stone. I'm going to move this up. And let's make a bell tower. Yeah, that looks good for the inside. Let's go find that bell. So we have this East Asia bell, which is very cool. I've never used it. It's kind of a statement piece. The only thing is, it's not flexi color, and it does not contrast. It's just this big gray blob, which I feel like a bronze bell might suit a little bit more. And this one is actually flexi color. Yeah, a more copper hue maybe? I kind of like that. And let's bring it down. The only thing is I want to make sure that we have it aligned to the top. That's pretty close. And then, do we have rope? Not taupe, rope. Rope might not actually cut it. Let's see, I know we have some industrial pieces. Light bracket. Yeah, these things. Brace brackets. Yeah, like that. Okay. So now I'm gonna go ahead and do all of the little bits and pieces of cleanup just to make this look good, and we'll see where it lands me. Okay, so I think that's looking a lot better for the tower. Let's go ahead and... This, I think, needs some interest. So we could have like a shop window, maybe? Hard maybe. I don't know if it'll actually let us. Let's see how much it's gonna allow. Let's grab out the European stone. Grab out some walls. Let's get some amount of grid height on this, because otherwise it's gonna look ugly. Yeah, just as so. And this kind of feels like the place where you would have an info kiosk. And wouldn't you know it, it will let us do that. Okay, and then, since we're already kind of working within the classical theme, there is an awning that I'm thinking of, but it's not called that. It's called like a shop canopy or something. You know what, let's go to all. Yeah, that was the problem. This little thing right here. And maybe not like bump your head height, a little bit closer to that. Yeah. And then the one thing that's bothering me is that we have no clocks. It just does not like this one. And I wonder if we brought these in even more. Yeah, that looks a little bit less ridiculous. And then after that we can just go through, get rid of these. And then this side won't have a clock, but honestly, I'm like, it's fine. It's fine. I'm not worried. Okay. So I like this so far. You know what? Let's just be silly. Let's get out some more European stone. Although we do have these bridge panels, and they are kind of more what I'm thinking of, but I don't know how I feel about the wood. You know what? I actually don't think I like that style. I like the concept, just not that style. No. I mean, I like it. It's just, I don't think that that's going to work. Let me pull out a blueprint that I already have for this bridge right here. So this one I ended up doing basically custom. And we're using a lot of the same kind of elements here, just rearranged slightly differently. I think if I can pull out this structure, separate it down the middle, and then elongate it, just make sure that I even could. I could do that, yeah. Okay. There we go. It's like, I know this is causing me problems, but I couldn't figure out why. Conservation slat cladding beam. Let's get the copper version of this roof. That looks a little bit better. And then these beams, as much as I like them, yeah. And then maybe we go halvesies like this and then pull out some kind of fencing. Maybe that could work. Yeah, that looks okay. Yeah, that's a good start. Alright, so with that done, let's go ahead and figure out what our colors are going to end up being. Because I don't like the stone being like this. Yeah, that's got a little bit more life to it. I almost like that a little bit more because it blends with our concrete a little bit better. And then let's deal with our plaster. Actually, that looks really classy. I kind of like that. That's actually pretty cool. Yeah, and then we can kind of work within these copper tones a little bit. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I think that looks cute. It's pretty. Okay, all right. I'm satisfied with this at least. Okay. So the obvious next place for us to go is to figure out where our spawners are going to be and our guest entrances. That is the obvious step. Disappointing as that is. Let me think about it for a little while and I'll come back to you. Okay, so I'm back from a little bit of Googling and some lunch, and I found this, the Birmingham Zoo entrance. It's really cool. I like the color palette, I like what they're doing with the stonework, and I love these, like, gentle curves that they've got through here. So I do want to take some inspiration from this, especially this multi-level thing. I do like the fact that they're using a lot of glass in this. A lot of glass, a lot of steel beams. And I kind of like that. I'm not sure how we're going to implement it. We'll see. I don't want to recreate this one for one, though. It's not going to make sense with where we're at. So let's go back into the game. And I'm thinking some kind of... Since this is sort of our wider platform, we're going to have to go out. So let's grab our foundation, intensity, size. Maybe not 20 just yet, because of the weirdness in the terrain over here. But let's go ahead and pull this out and give ourselves some more room. We don't need to work with all of this, we can always erase later, but I just want to give ourselves plenty of space. And then there's absolutely no reason for this to be dirt, so let's go ahead and grab out some short grass. Good. So the other thing that I'm thinking about is our teleporters. Let's grab some guest spawners. Now, Planet Zoo has always, and Planet Coaster, anytime that you're dealing with anything in the Planet Anything universe, you're gonna end up with these teleporter pads. And most of the time we make a great big deal out of hiding them because they don't make a lot of sense. Most of us try and go for some amount of realism or semi-realism at the very least. But we are in the void. Like, actually in the void. So realism is gone. It's beyond us. There's no point. We can pull realism in for several pieces of the builds, and we will continue with some amount of realism just to, like, tether some amount of believability into what is, by definition, a ridiculous premise. But since we're already in this kind of strange space, I'd like to work a little bit with some more sci-fi themes. And I know we don't have an entrance for sci-fi, but I think maybe we can make some of the theming work, at least in this style. So let's get out some metal. And I am looking for beams specifically, like these fence posts, but the thick one, that's what I'm looking for. Yeah, these. And if I remember correctly, yes, they are flexi color. But I do wonder... Yeah. Silly looking? Very. Is the premise already silly? Yes. Yes, it is. Okay, so I think we can work something like that in. Next, let's get out some more copper roofs. And let's see what we have available. Looks like everything's basically on the grid. I mean, it doesn't look terrible. It's kind of okay. Honestly, it doesn't look too bad. And it gives the right shape. And it's kind of the right size. Considering that as far as I want it to be, it's basically going to be... Like, we're gonna have a little bit more here on the side, maybe? Okay, and then let's get out some wood, I think. Yeah. And then let's get out some of our European stone. Okay, so after giving this a look and having a think about it, I think that this is going to be, weirdly enough, too small. Like, I think that the gaps between these sections are not going to be big enough for what I want to do with this. So, with that being the case, unfortunately what this means is that I gotta rip it down, break it into its sections, and then rebuild it. I don't have to completely delete it and start over, thankfully, but I do have to do quite a bit of detail work on this. So I'm going to do that off screen because otherwise it's going to be so boring. And then we will come back and hopefully this will look much better than it currently does. Okay, so I've made the necessary modifications. I ended up ripping out these little boxes right here, doing a little bit to just clean them up. Added these little, I don't know what you call these ledge things, just to the concrete and the stone to break this up a little bit, make it look a little bit cleaner. And did the same thing with this metal, added, found a little, like, trim piece in the Twilight DLC that seemed to work really well. Ended up moving these to being flat instead of the 1 meter talls. I looked at the reference photo again and it looks like the roofs are flat, and it looks a little bit better, I think. And then supported it with these little metal beams. Ended up elongated everything so that way we actually have gaps that you can move through. And then turned it about 180 degrees so that way the curve is actually facing towards this. So I like it a little bit more. I think it works better for what we're trying to achieve here. Of course, the next thing that we need to do is we need to tie all of these elements together. So we've got our little weird little spawners. We've got this element through here, and I think now we just need some kind of way to tie all of this together. So I'm gonna work on doing that, and then we'll see where this ends up. Alright, so I have made this little garden here. It just felt right to do. But now we need to actually put some kind of plant in the garden. So I think this is where we start to bring in the randomizer, because so far, I mean, everything's just sort of been... Like, I went into this with absolutely no plan, and now we're kind of at a point where we need to start pulling out some dice. So here's the deal. Here's how this is going to work. So with this one specifically, there are 6 biomes that we can choose from in Planet Zoo. We have Savanna, which I think is actually grassland, tropical, temperate, taiga, desert, tundra, and Arctic. Or maybe I've counted some of those twice. I don't know. Anyway, we have about 6 of them, which means it's perfect for a D6. So let's go ahead and grab one of those out real quick. 6. Okay. So I've got the Planet Zoo website pulled up right here. We've got tundra, taiga, savanna, rainforest, desert, and temperate. So we're going to count this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So let's go over to our D6. Yes, I know these are weighted, but it's all I can do digitally. And roll. And we still get a 2. So when we go over to our Zoopedia, region 1, 2, looks like we're picking taiga. So let me go ahead and decorate this in taiga theme. Alright, so I've had a bit of a think. Did I bring up the teleporters? I don't remember if I told you about the teleporters. Anyway, this is the design we settled on. I like it. I think it's good. The only thing is that while these look really nifty, and kind of sci-fi if I do say so, blending all of this together is going to be the challenge here, because this is kind of old and rustic already. This is a little bit more modern, and this is very modern, and depending on how we style it, could lean too far into futuristic. So I definitely think we need some more greenery, but I think in order for this to make sense, we need something to contrast this flat top, because otherwise we have this sort of down stacking, which makes this look sort of like it's without context. So I don't like that. So I'm debating on how I'm going to try this. I think glass is going to be the answer, as is bringing in some of the motif from here. So let's see what we can do, shall we? Let's get out some glass. Okay, so I've had another break. I've had another think. And I talked to my editor, and they suggested, so right now we kind of have this thing where, like, this is very kind of, maybe more Renaissance leaning, like, not quite medieval. It's got medieval aspects to it, but, the amount of, like, copper and metal and all that kind of stuff just leans it more forward. This is very modern, which does make sense with the reference photo that we were using. And then this, we're leaning a little bit too futuristic. So they suggested that maybe the fact that we're sort of leaning in time through all of this is causing some dissonance, and I'm inclined to agree. So what I'm thinking is I want to pull this more in line with sort of a, you know, that nebulous point in time that steampunk takes place in where it's not modern, and it's also not quite Victorian either, like it's that weird hybrid place. Maybe leaning it more towards that, where you still have a lot of the Renaissance architecture being reused. So that does mean more modifications to this, but I think I can do them. It just means probably replacing some of the metal, and then maybe doing some more with this rooftop, which my husband also suggested. And then for these pads right here, I do like them. But I think if we replace the metal with stone, and then we change the copper to be more of this, like, purple, then we can kind of play with a magic sort of idea, which I think could be a lot of fun, because I don't really see magic a lot in Planet Zoo. Like, I'm not even sure we can. I'm kind of excited to see, like, what we can do with this. So, I'm gonna play with it a little bit more, replace these, probably take away this building since I don't think it's gonna fit into my plans very well. And I have an idea based off of all things, a Minecraft tutorial that I saw like a couple weeks ago. So we'll see where it lands us. At this point, I'm just hoping for something to work out because while I like all the individual pieces, I feel like we're not blending appropriately, and that is something that matters to me, especially when we're starting off a zoo. So let's work on, there we are. And then I think I'll fix this one here, and then we will copy paste it over here. And I have, like I said, I have an idea. I think we can do like a plinth situation. And it's also possible that we end up saving this as a blueprint and reusing it somewhere else. That is also a possibility. So yeah, I'm gonna work for a little while and we'll see where it lands us. Okay, so I don't remember what I recorded yesterday, to be completely blunt. I know I recorded something to do with this. I know that I'm gonna split this off and just sort of keep it. I think I want to save this as a blueprint actually, because I really like the design. Good enough. And then zoo entrances, create. Good. Okay. So for these, I'm gonna go ahead and remove the metal. And we're actually gonna replace this with stone. Okay, so this is what I think we're gonna stick with for the new design. I like it. It's got definitely those strong fantasy vibes, and it gives me an opportunity to finally incorporate these roots. They always feel like they should be like kind of spooky and magical, and I've never had an appropriate arena for them, but I think this works pretty well for them. So with the spawners figured out, and with this kind of in the direction that I want to go with it, and I think we can make these work, it's just this bit that I'm sort of left wondering. So what I might do is blueprint it, delete it, and we could potentially try and rework it. But I'm feeling like maybe it's not necessary for what we're gonna do. And I know that we've spent like a long time building this. I'm fully aware. But hopefully my editor will have trimmed out the brunt of it, so that way either you're just now seeing it for the first time and going, what is this? Or you saw me get started on it, saw the highlights, and then, you know, ended up here. So, because we're not going to be able to use it. It's very cool. I like it, but it's not doing what I need it to do. So we're just going to save it as a new blueprint, because when you don't like something in its location, but you do like the concept, it's usually a pretty good way to keep something. Let's just do entrance facade 1. Zoo entrances, create blueprint. Good. Okay. So now that we've gotten rid of that, this does feel a lot more open. There's only so much that we can get rid of in as far as the pathing through here. I like this little garden though. I think that this can stay. There we are. We've got just about everything. And I don't want to grab it straight down because remember, we've got this giant building under here. Move selection. Looks like we didn't get... There we are. Kind of directs the flow of traffic. I don't need these paths. Not for now, at least. You've been blueprinted. We can nuke you. You've technically been blueprinted, so we can nuke you. These beams... they can stay. They can stay for now. Or do we want a grand one and 2 more simple auxiliaries? Yeah, it's not perfect, but I mean, it's better than nothing. Nice grand walkway. And then I think we can actually get rid of these. Yeah, that shouldn't cause us any problems. And the only thing that we really have to deal with... So we need ticket booths. That gets the job done. Okay. So now we don't need this duplicate. Let's just round out this base a little bit. Because again, we can always subtract later. But it is really hard to work above the void. You know what? I kind of like the idea of working with planters, so I'm going to play with that for a little while. Okay, so I've got all of the different little bits and bobs for the garden plots done. Let's go into explore mode, just so that way we can have a bit of a walk around, see what we're looking at. So we've got our teleporters. I'm kind of enjoying how these, like, mage towers turned out. I wasn't really sure if I was going to be able to do this, just because I don't have the mod that unlocks the gridded part, so that way you can rotate them in, like, 3D space, not just around the ground. But we managed to find a workaround with those Indian pieces and then just recoloring some of the Twilight bits. So yeah, they look a little bit strange, but that's kind of what I could do in the circumstances. And of course, using trees on the inside gives this really nice, like, sort of overgrown vine appearance without us having to go through and, like, actually attach all the different vine pieces, which was really nice, considering that we're already working with, you know, a lot of part overload, just trying to get this as green as possible. I didn't want to go full-on symmetry, so we ended up replacing the height on this tree, or that tower, sorry, with this grove of trees over here, which I think works pretty decently. It breaks things up, it doesn't make things feel too repetitive, because, again, we are using the same asset 3 times. Now, of course, the only thing is that you'll notice that as we build up through here, you can still tell everything feels kind of flat. We still feel like we're in the void. There's a lot more sense of place, but at the same time, you know, it all does feel a little bit barren. But this is the start of our zoo. It's going to feel barren. And one of the nice things about working in something like the void is that we don't have to obey things like gravity. You know, we can have floating sideways islands, and we can have all kinds of stuff just sort of out here. So that's really something that I'm considering at the end of the day is, you know, how is this going to look in the long term? You know, when we go up floors and when we go down and all that kind of stuff. So for right now, I think the biggest detractor is going to be this back end. I added these big old trees back here because I never get to use them, and so I wanted to try and incorporate something really massive, and I think that these work really nicely for that. They're not quite, you know, on par with the redwoods, but the redwoods actually weren't part of my taiga kit for some reason, or if they were, I didn't see them in the options, but there were so many of them. Of course, the other thing too is this back end where we start to get some fraying on the continent, or the island, or whatever we're calling this, the land piece. Obviously this looks really ugly right now. If this were a true diorama, I'd spend a lot of time just going through all these different borders and fixing that up. But again, I'm thinking about this in terms of context, right? The context says that there's no need for us to do that right now because we don't know where this is going to go. We don't know where the islands are going to be. We don't know what's going to end up needing connections. We don't know if this is going to end up being a sheer cliff face up here, and we actually need all of this space to be undecorated so that way we can just pull our terrain. So I'm not too worried about that for right now. I think I'm going to let it be bare, but what I do want to focus on next is going to be these areas right through here, these little teleporter pads, so that way the ground doesn't look quite so bland. So I think I am going to frame these out again. We're not going to use quite the same piece. I want to do something a little bit different, but I think that that's going to be where we end up going next. So I just wanted to do a bit of a check-in because I know that that bit was a lot of long building, and I have no idea what my editor is going to end up doing with it, if any of it was actually interesting to watch, and so stayed. But we'll see. Of course, we're running into a problem with our kit pieces. Again, we're sort of in a place where it might be easier for us to either just turn them into blueprints and delete them, or to have them as other pieces that I can grab off. For example, this little curve wall right here is the same thing that I've used repeatedly over and over, so I'm comfortable deleting it. And then this metal pillar, I'm honestly in a weird place with it because it is this sort of cool rusted pillar thing, but I don't know that I'm ever going to need this again. And maybe I won't. So I'm going to just go ahead and delete it, and it's not exactly difficult to rebuild. It's just a whole bunch of metal blocks stacked on top of each other in a pillar. It's just tedious to build, really. So with all of that cleared out of the way, let's go ahead and let's start working on this area through here. Make this nice and pretty. So I think with this greenery patch through here completely done, I am very happy with where we are landed. And I think that this is probably a good place for us to begin wrapping up. So some last few notes, things to think about. The main issue that I have with this setup, despite the fact that I love this shape, I love the way that we've ended up framing this, I went into this with clearly no plan whatsoever. So this has been kind of enjoyable to see where it takes us. I'm loving the color. I'm loving the weird little wizard's towers we've done. I'm loving the shape of this plaza. But there are some things we need to consider. For example, our ticket booths are going to be right here, our starting pads are right here, and so that means from this point until we get to our first exhibit or our first concession stand or our first whatever, this entire distance has no concessions, it has no restrooms, it has no benches, and so it leaves this area kind of open and awkward looking and a little bit barren. So that's something that we will eventually probably need to revisit. It's possible that I will end up going in and adding in these little... Oh, I can't remember what they're called. The counter facilities. Making some custom counters, maybe even using the little European trucks or whatever. I haven't decided just yet, but I do think that this is a good place for us to stop, and then we will come back and add or subtract or whatever we need to do based on whatever happens in the next episode. So, speaking of that next episode, I have not spun the wheel yet. We will be introducing the Wheel of Mayhem. It's got over 200 creatures on it. So, it's a big wheel. Definitely for sure. And, yeah, there will be like a little, if you're one of my visual sensitive viewers, there will be a little toggle on there, or a little chapter button, so that way you can skip over when we do the spinning, if you just want to see the result or whatever. And then, of course, I may end up putting the name of the animals in the title of the video. It just depends. But yeah, so we'll actually finally be getting into building for animals next episode and sort of expanding our park and seeing where we end up going with it. I don't know how big this is going to end up being. I don't know, you know, again, for the directions and all that kind of stuff. We're just sort of playing it by ear with this. But anyway, I hope that you've enjoyed this rather long episode. You know, getting everything set up, leaning into sort of that fantasy design that I wasn't really sure if we were going to do or not, but, you know, it's pretty nice. Hope that you all will join me next time. And yeah, I think that's all I've got to say. So thank you so much. Have a great week, and happy building.